Have you ever felt something was off about someone, but you just couldn't explain why? Maybe it was the way they spoke, the way they looked at you, or how they always seemed to have an agenda. You see, evil doesn't always show itself in obvious ways. Sometimes it hides behind charm, good manners, and even a friendly smile. But what if I told you that there are 6 undeniable signs that expose the true nature of a person? Signs that, once you recognize them, will change the way you see people forever. Stay with me until the end, because spotting these red flags could protect you from manipulation, betrayal, and even danger. Red flag number 1. They twist reality, gaslighting. Picture this. You confront someone about something they did. Maybe they lied, betrayed your trust, or crossed a boundary. But instead of taking responsibility, they make you feel like the crazy one. Suddenly you're questioning yourself. Did I misunderstand? Am I overreacting? And then before you know it, they've completely rewritten history. To everyone's surprise, they act as if the truth has always been in their favor. And very soon after, they convince others that you're the one misremembering the past. You see, this will blow your mind, but gaslighting isn't just about manipulation. It's about control. By making you doubt your perception of reality, they gain power over your decisions, your emotions, and even your self-worth. What's more, this kind of psychological warfare can make you second-guess your own instincts, keeping you trapped in a cycle of confusion. Unbeknownst to many, the ancient Stoics had already identified this type of deception centuries ago. Seneca once said, "A good character, when established, is not easily overthrown." In other words, the truth is a foundation that must remain unshaken, no matter how others attempt to distort it. I once had a friend who was a master at twisting reality. At first, he was charming, intelligent, and always seemed to have the best intentions. But then over time, things began to shift. If he forgot a plan we made, he would insist that I never told him about it. If he insulted someone and got called out, he'd claim it was just a joke and that the other person was too sensitive. And then, in conversations, he would recount events that we had both experienced. But his version was completely different from reality. At first, I doubted myself. Maybe I really did remember it wrong. But then I started keeping notes, writing things down, checking texts, and at that precise instant, I saw the pattern. This wasn't forgetfulness or miscommunication. This was deliberate manipulation. Now let's put it differently. If someone constantly denies reality, minimizes your experiences, or spins the truth to serve their agenda, that's not just dishonesty, it's deliberate manipulation. And in that moment, when you recognize what they're doing, you must make a choice. Will you allow them to rewrite your reality, or will you stand firm in what you know to be true? Because of this, the Stoics remind us that clarity is power. If someone repeatedly gaslights you, distance yourself. Not only that, but also protect your mind from their influence. As Marcus Aurelius wisely put it, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. At the end of the day, a person who twists reality does not respect you. And without respect, there can be no trust. And without trust, there can be no real relationship. To sum up, gaslighting isn't just a red flag. It's a siren blaring in the distance, warning you to step away before you lose sight of who you are. Red flag number 2. They take pleasure in others' pain. Have you ever noticed someone who seems to enjoy watching others struggle? They laugh at misfortune, mock weakness, and, worst of all, show no remorse. At first, it might seem harmless. Maybe they just have a dark sense of humor, right? But then, as the plot thickens, you start to notice something unsettling. They aren't joking. You see, a truly dangerous person doesn't just witness suffering, they feed on it. It fuels them. It makes them feel powerful. And then, without delay, they take it one step further. What's more, they may even provoke pain just to witness the reaction. This will blow your mind, but the Stoics warned us about this kind of individual long ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What injures the hive injures the bee." In other words, when someone delights in destruction rather than creation, when they take pleasure in tearing others down instead of lifting them up, that's not just a flaw. That's a warning. I once had a colleague who fit this description perfectly. At first, I thought he was just competitive, someone who thrived on challenges. But then, as the plot thickened, I started noticing a disturbing pattern. If a co-worker failed at a project, instead of offering support, he would smirk and make cutting remarks like, "I saw that coming." And then, without delay, he would spread gossip about their failure, making sure everyone knew about their mistakes. What's more, he didn't just passively enjoy others' misfortunes. He actively created situations to make people uncomfortable. I remember a time when a new employee made a minor mistake in presentation. Instead of letting it slide or helping them improve, he interrupted, exaggerated the error, and made a spectacle out of it. And at that precise instant, I realized he wasn't doing this because he cared about the work. He was doing it because he loved watching people squirm. But then here's the real question. If they take pleasure in someone else's downfall today, what happens when you are the one struggling? Suddenly you realize you are not exempt. And at that precise instant, it dawns on you. This is who they are. Because of this, the Stoics remind us that our relationships must be intentional. Seneca put it best, associate with those who will make a better man of you. So if someone consistently thrives on negativity, if they enjoy pain rather than seek to relieve it, that is not a personality trait, it is a red flag. Ultimately, the ability to feel compassion is what makes us human. Without it, we are no different from beasts. And so, if you ever find yourself around someone who relishes suffering, walk away. Not only for your sake, but because the longer you stay, the more their darkness will seep into you. Red flag number 3, they manipulate through guilt and obligation. True kindness expects nothing in return. However, manipulators twist generosity into a form of control. Imagine this. Someone does you a small favor, and then, just moments later, they remind you of it. And then before you know it, they start using it as leverage. All of a sudden, you're caught in a web of guilt. Because of this, you feel obligated to repay them, not out of gratitude, but out of fear of seeming ungrateful. What's more, they use guilt as a weapon, making you feel trapped in an unspoken contract of endless repayment. But then, let's be clear, this is not generosity. This is manipulation. To put it differently, a favor given with strings attached is not a gift. It's a debt. And if someone keeps track of every good deed, expecting something in return, they are not a friend. They are your master. At first, it might seem like they're just keeping score, a simple way of ensuring fairness. But then, something shifts. Every favor comes with an unspoken expectation. You notice how they bring up past deeds whenever they want something. And then without delay, they guilt trip you into compliance. Suddenly your autonomy feels compromised, as though you owe them something you never agreed to repay. This will blow your mind, but the Stoics warned us about these kinds of emotional traps long ago. Epictetus reminds us that true friendship is freely given. A relationship built on obligation is not a relationship, it's servitude. Seneca also cautioned against those who manipulate kindness, writing, "The wise man bestows benefits, but looks for nothing in return." In other words, genuine generosity does not create debt, it creates trust. I once had a friend who was particularly skilled at this. At first he seemed generous, always offering to help, covering small expenses, and going out of his way to be accommodating. I appreciated it, who wouldn't? But then, as the plot thickened, I started noticing something strange. Every time he needed a favor, he would remind me of what he had done for me in the past. And then, without hesitation, he would say things like, "Remember when I helped you with that thing? I just thought you'd do this one small thing for me." At first, I didn't think much of it. But then I realized there was always an expectation. It wasn't generosity, it was a contract I never signed. What's more, this manipulation is often disguised as concern. "After all I've done for you," they say, "I just thought you'd help me this one time." And then, before you can object, you feel that tight grip of guilt pulling you back in. But make no mistake, this isn't kindness. This is emotional extortion. Because of this, the Stoics remind us, cut the strings. If someone holds their kindness over your head, distance yourself. Not only that, but also recognize that their so-called generosity is a calculated tactic, not an act of goodwill. At the end of the day, relationships should be built on respect, not obligation. And if someone uses guilt to control you, walk away. Not only for your peace, but for your freedom. Because true kindness does not demand repayment. It stands on its own. Red flag number 4. They are unpredictably cruel. One of the most dangerous traits a person can have is unpredictability, specifically unpredictable cruelty. One moment they are charming, kind, and warm. And then, without warning, they turn ice-cold, distant, or even aggressive. At first, it seems like an emotional outburst, a one-time event. But then, as the plot thickens, you begin to notice a pattern. They shift between affection and cruelty, not by accident, but by design. And very soon after, you find yourself constantly adjusting your behavior to avoid triggering their next explosion. You see, this isn't instability, this is control. This will blow your mind. But Seneca warned us about such people centuries ago. He said, "He who is cruel is weak, because true strength is consistency. A strong person does not need to shift between kindness and cruelty. They do not need to keep you guessing. But a manipulator, they thrive on uncertainty. They want you to feel like you are standing on shaky ground so that you cling to them for stability." I once had a mentor who was both inspiring and terrifying. At times, he was incredibly supportive, offering guidance, encouragement, and praise. But then, all of a sudden, he would lash out with harsh criticism, cutting remarks, and passive-aggressive comments. At first, I rationalized it. Maybe he was just having a bad day. But then, as the plot thickened, I started noticing the pattern. If I did something he liked, he would treat me with kindness. But if I made a mistake, Or even if I simply disagreed with him, he would turn ice cold. And then, without hesitation, he would make sure I felt small, insignificant, and uncertain of my own abilities. At one point, I remember delivering a presentation that had taken me weeks to prepare. He had praised my work leading up to the event, but right afterward, in front of a room full of people, he dismissed my effort as mediocre at best. I was stunned. Just moments earlier, he had told me how impressed he was. And at that precise instant, I realized his kindness was conditional. It wasn't genuine support, it was a tool of control. What's more, this unpredictability is a powerful psychological tool. It fosters something called intermittent reinforcement, a manipulation tactic used in toxic relationships. Essentially, they keep you hooked by rewarding you just enough to make you stay, while punishing you frequently enough to make you afraid of leaving. But then ask yourself this: is this the kind of person you want to invest your time and energy into? If someone is sometimes kind but sometimes vicious, don't make excuses for them. Their unpredictability is not a flaw, it is a strategy. Because of this, the Stoics remind us that consistency is the key to virtue. A truly good person does not oscillate between compassion and cruelty. They are reliable, stable, and grounded in principle. If someone around you is unpredictable in a way that keeps you anxious, on edge, or fearful, it's time to walk away. At the end of the day, you deserve relationships that bring you peace, not chaos. And if someone is constantly shifting between love and cruelty, they are not confused. They are controlling you. And once you recognize this, you must make a choice. Will you keep tolerating their manipulation, or will you free yourself from their cycle of control? Red flag number 5, they never accept responsibility. Let's be honest, everyone makes mistakes. Even the greatest minds in history admitted to their own shortcomings. Marcus Aurelius himself frequently reminded us that wisdom comes not from perfection, but from self-awareness. Yet some people refuse to accept even the slightest responsibility for their actions. Instead, they blame others, make excuses, and rewrite the past to paint themselves as the victim. At first, it may seem like they are simply trying to explain their circumstances. But then, as the plot thickens, you realize that every single time something goes wrong in their life, they find someone else to blame. And then, without hesitation, they spin a new version of events where they are always the innocent party, wronged by the world. And very soon after, you start to notice that in every story they tell, they are never at fault. It was their boss, their parents, their ex, or even you, but never them. What's more, they don't just shift blame, they use it as a shield to avoid personal growth. After all, if nothing is ever their fault, then they never have to change. You see, this will blow your mind. But the Stoics warned about this long ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. But someone who refuses responsibility, they will never find strength. They will remain trapped in a cycle of excuses, and worse, they will drag you down with them." I once had a coworker who never seemed to learn this lesson. At first, he was charismatic and likable, always quick with an excuse for everything. If a project failed, it was because the client gave bad instructions. If he missed a deadline, it was because someone else didn't remind him. And then, as the plot thickened, I realized something strange. He was never at fault for anything. One day we were working on a major presentation together. I trusted him to complete his part, but at the last moment he claimed he had never agreed to it. I was stunned. I even had emails showing his confirmation, but instead of acknowledging the mistake, he flipped the blame. "You should have reminded me more clearly," he said. And at that precise instant, I understood. He was not just forgetful, he was refusing to take responsibility. But then ask yourself, do you want to surround yourself with someone who sees themselves as powerless? Because inevitably, they will try to pull you into their web of negativity. And at that precise instant, you must decide, will you entertain their excuses, or will you step away and focus on your own growth? Because of this, the Stoics remind us that true power lies in accountability. If you meet someone who refuses to take responsibility, be cautious. Not only that, but also understand that their refusal to grow will limit your own potential. As Seneca put it, associate with those who will make a better man of you. Ultimately, you are responsible for the energy you allow into your life. If someone constantly shifts blame, makes excuses, and refuses to reflect, the healthiest thing you can do is walk away. Because in the end, your future should not be dictated by someone else's inability to take responsibility for their own past. Red flag number 6, they drain your energy. Now, this might not seem as obvious as the other red flags, but trust me, it is just as dangerous. Some people are not necessarily aggressive, manipulative, or cruel. But still, after spending time with them, you feel exhausted, drained, or even anxious. And then when you think about it, you realize something. They steal energy rather than share it. They bring constant drama, negativity, and self-centeredness into every interaction. What's more, they seem to thrive on conflict, feeding off the emotional responses of others. At first, you might assume they are just going through a rough time, but then you notice a pattern. Every conversation revolves around them. This will blow your mind, but energy drainers don't always appear toxic at first. In fact, they often disguise their behavior as vulnerability. They seek your attention, always needing to vent, always needing reassurance. And then before you know it, they have drained your emotional reserves, leaving you feeling depleted while they walk away feeling lighter. But then ask yourself this: do they ever reciprocate? Do they ever ask how you are doing? Do they ever listen without turning the conversation back to themselves? If the answer is no, then what you are dealing with is not a friend. It is an emotional parasite. Seneca put it best: associate with those who will make a better man of you. But if someone only drains you, if they make every conversation about their problems, if they consume rather than contribute, that is not a relationship. That is a one-sided transaction. I once had a close friend who seemed to carry a storm cloud with them wherever they went. At first, I felt sympathy for them. They always seemed to be struggling with something, and I wanted to help. But then, as the plot thickened, I noticed something strange. No matter how much advice, encouragement, or support I offered, nothing ever changed. Every conversation revolved around their problems. And then, without hesitation, they would dismiss any suggestion I made, insisting that their situation was hopeless. What's more, they never asked about me, never checked in to see how I was doing. Slowly, I started to feel drained after every interaction, as though their negativity was seeping into my own life. One day, after yet another hour-long rant about their problems, I realized something. They didn't want solutions. They just wanted an audience. And at that precise instant, I understood. I wasn't their friend. I was their emotional dumping ground. Because of this, the Stoics remind us, guard your energy. Your mental space is sacred, and the people you allow into your life shape your mindset, your motivation, and your peace. If someone consistently leaves you feeling worse, not better, step away. Not only for your mental clarity, but for your peace. Because at the end of the day, the people you surround yourself with will shape your future. To sum up, an energy drainer will take as much as you allow. So set boundaries, protect your time, and most importantly, protect your peace. Not everyone can be saved. Not everyone wants to change, and that's okay. Your responsibility is not to fix them, it's to protect yourself. Because at the end of the day, your mind is your greatest asset. Your peace is your greatest treasure, and who you allow into your life will shape your future. If this video helped you, don't forget to subscribe. Stay strong, stay wise, and I'll see you in the next one.